let's get into the air squat. Coach is gonna give us a few reps so you can see what it looks like at a few different angles, but we want to be reminded, where are we supposed to feel this movement? We're supposed to feel this movement in our legs, and we want it to develop our posterior chain, so our butt and hamstrings as much as possible. Know that you will feel it in your quads, and especially if you're moving fast, but we want to err on that back side of the body. Now, I always like to try to think about the bottom and move our way up for our durability tips, because it's so always important to think about our foundation of the movement. So if we move down towards our feet, we want to think about shoulder width apart, maybe a little wider. Now this is where it's going to be important for you to go ahead and realize we need to be in tune with how it feels. If we go really narrow with the squat, and she goes ahead and gives us 1 or 2, we're going to go ahead and send the squat into a more knee and ankle dominant movement, where we're going to feel a lot more pressure in those two joints. So if you have knee problems or it just doesn't feel good, then guess what? Go wider. So let's talk about the far end. If we go super wide, we're gonna take a lot of the knee and the ankle out of it, and then we are gonna transfer all that tension into the hip. So if we have hip capsule issues, or if we go so wide to where it doesn't feel very good in the hip, then guess what? We need to find that nice Goldilocks type of situation to where we're at the width that it's not overloading the knees or the ankles, but we're not really feeling the hip, right? It's like your cold, dead heart, right? We're just not feeling anything, but in a good way. Now, that's never something your therapist ever told you, right? Now, from here, we want to think, how do we initiate the move? We want to initiate the movement with our hip rather than the knee, because the hip is more robust than the knee down here. So she's gonna think about drawing the hip back, and as soon as the hip goes back, then we can start to think about the knee. And then from there, that tells us, great, where is our weight? Our weight needs to be in our heel. And for those of us that feel like we're really comfortable with feeling the squat, we wanna think about gripping the ground with our big toe, with weight still being in our heel, so that way we're more in the center of our foot, our arch. Now, from here, we also want to think of the knee is driving out. So it's like their brother and sister, they never come in. Go ahead and give me a valgus knee, coach. Ooh, right, super gross, right? We want to think about pushing them out, and your target is trying to get your knees to point over your pinky toes. Now from there, you're done with the squat in terms of depth once your hip crease goes below your knee. If I had a marble right here and I let it go, it's gonna start to draw down. Now for those of you with gigantic quads, some of us just are blessed with that, it might not actually be able to do that, but we just wanna think, is this crease below the top of the knee? Now we want to go ahead and understand, in between each rep, we stand up all the way, and we wanna make sure we feel like we're in a good Peter Pan stance, the hip and the knee comes to a full lockout. Now, we talked about our base, where our knees go, what should initiate with our hips, but let's talk about our torso. We want to think of a neutral spine. So if coach goes ahead and kind of gives you a full side profile, if she overextends, which ladies tend to be able to do this a ton, we see that the low back whoop, starts to arch. We have a nice little booty shelf now here, and the ribs are flared. That's going to put a lot of pressure into the low back for some of us. Now, we want to think, yeah, there we go. Now, upright torso, awesome, but that can really get our low back long term. So we want to think ribs down, right, as we see. Go ahead and flex again, right? And ribs down, boom. We want to try to keep this as we try to think about our squatting mechanics. Now, this will have our torso tip ourselves a little more forward, which is okay, but that's going to keep this trunk in this back neutral and strong. Then from there, I like to think, if my abs are tight, taking the top of my head, pulling it high like I'm a marionette doll, and that's gonna help me make sure I'm not curving through the upper back right here. Where the abs can still be tight, the ribs are in the right place, but the thoracic, that upper back, is just in the garbage position. So really start to drive up. One thing that you could also think is pulling your hands up, and that will automatically bring your torso a little taller, and as long as you keep your abs on, you're good to go. Stand, coach. So those are gonna be our durability tips, some things to feel for. Now, try hard tips is going to be trying to pull yourself down. And this takes some time to really feel that ability to pull into the bottom of the squat. So some of you just might need to think of free falling down into the squat, but I don't like that concept, because lots of times you start to knee initiate, boom. All right, and then that is a fault we don't want. So So you wanna think about pulling down through the hip at a diagonal, and then you're just thinking squeezing your butt and driving up as hard and fast as you can. Guys, there you go.